Hello everyone, and welcome to my review of the original Pet Sematary adaptation from 1989, directed by Mary Lambert, and this will be the beginning of my Pet Sematary review series leading up to Pet Sematary Bloodlines, and once that movie's out I'm going to do a ranking of all four of these movies, and I'm very interested to talk about this original film today because it's such a bizarre movie. As I said earlier, it was directed by Mary Lambert, and it stars Fred Gwynne, Dale Midkiff, Denise Crosby, Brad Greenquist, and Miko Hughes. And it was based off of a Stephen King novel of the exact same name, one of his absolute best novels, and both the novel and the film follow the Creed family, who move into a house in kind of remote Ludlow in Maine, and it explores this terrifying chain of events that occurs once they realise an old ancient burial ground out behind their house. So reading this book for the first time, let's go to the book first. Reading it for the first time was one of the most mind-blowing experiences I think I've ever had. It was just... I was 15 and I couldn't believe that something so awful and horrendous and nasty could exist, and it was just shocking. I struggled to turn the pages at some points, and it still remains one of my absolute favourite novels of his. I've read it a couple of times since then, and I fucking adore it. And I remember very clearly watching this movie for the first time and being sorely let down by it. And I'm not going to go into reasons as to why at the moment, but I will talk about it when I get to my negatives with the film. But I've watched this film, I reckon, probably 5 or 6 times since then. And each time I watch it, I don't think it improves in quality, but I enjoy it a little bit more, to the point now where I can say, although this is not a great movie, it's barely even a good movie, I love this movie. I really do. I really have a soft spot for it. So let's get into the positives of this film. First up, Fred Gwynne as Judd Crandall. He's iconic. He might be hamming it up a little bit too much for some people, but for me, he was consistently entertaining. He really seemed like the only cast member who was really giving much of a shit, and yes, we'll talk about that later. But holy hell, he's just so charming, so weird. He really actually feels like a real person, as kind of caricaturized and as over the top as he is. You feel like you've met him before at some massive family gathering or something like that, and he was just that weird step uncle or whatever, just really... But yeah, you that kind of person that you meet once but you never forget. He feels like that kind of a person, and I don't know why, but he's great, and his facial expressions throughout this film really just make me crack up. Now, I'd like to say right now that a lot of my positives are things that happen in the final act of the film, because I think that's when this film really ramps up and actually, for a short while, becomes great. So, spoiler alert if you haven't seen this movie, I do recommend checking it out, but I might just like it because I have a soft spot for it, because, it was the kind of thing... I watched it at the right time. I was only really just getting into Stephen King, and it ended up being a gateway for me, and I have so many memories. So check it out, but don't expect to be blown away by it. So the first thing I'll mention about how great the final 30 minutes are is the scares, and I think that this movie is utterly horrifying. When it comes to delivering just pure chills, I think it really delivers. There are just some parts, the creepy baby laugh creeps the hell out of me every time I watch it. The weird wackiness of it all, I don't even know what's going on, but he goes into the house and it's all covered in green goop and algae, and it's just... Oh, it feels like a bad dream. I think it's just horrifying. And other things, just the reanimated Gage walking around with a scalpel is so horrifying. I don't know what it is, but just... He looks so angry, and he's walking up and he slashes Judd's mouth and slits it open like the Joker. And it's just... I don't know, but this is just one of those movies that gets to me. Also, Zelda? Holy shit. There might be some people that look at that and laugh. Never gonna happen again. But for me, it's so in your face and forcibly almost funny that it actually chills me. The fact that it's so again hammed up and ridiculous, but the execution of it, for some reason, it gets to me. I think some parts of it, when, like, for example, when Rachel gets hanged out of the attic and Gage is there and he just dives down, it's just it's just chilling. I also love the gore in this film. While there's not like a hell of a lot of it throughout the entire film, when you get the gory moments, it's really nasty. For example, Victor Pascal and his head all caved in and his brain exposed, Judd getting his Achilles slit. It's just gnarly, and I just, it gets to me. It gets to me, and especially that final shot when Lewis is kissing reanimated Rachel and all the pus comes out from where her eyes being ripped out, and it's just like, oh. There's also a lot of really great camera work. This film, in its final act, is directed incredibly well. It's got this weird swaying motion alongside the sound design, which I love. It's got like Lewis shouting out for Gage in the house, like the scene specifically when it's like all the algae and stuff like that. He's shouting out and it like echoes and rings really loud and the camera starts swirling, and it's uneasy. It creates a really uneasy atmosphere for the entirety of the final act, and I really love it. And my final positive for this film is that scene. The scene when Gage gets fucking smushed by a truck. Oh my god. Oh my god. It's so well done. The contrast of them flying the kite and then all of a sudden realizing that he's chasing it towards the road. And then just the face of the truck driver as he slams on the brakes. And then the shoe that just goes rolling along as it goes dead silent. And then the scream from Dale Midkiff. That's the only thing I think he's good in this movie. This scene in particular. That scream of him just screaming no as it's a bunch of old photos of Gage as an even smaller baby, like when he was first born and stuff like that. It is just, oh my god, it hurts. It is painful to watch. It feels scarily plausible because it could happen. And oh my god, it's amazing. It's a really tough scene to watch, and I think everything about that scene is brilliant. But now what shocks me about this movie is that aside from Gage's death, the first 2 acts of this movie are not good at all. Like, really, really not good. And that's why this film's so interesting, because it's like, you're watching it and you're like, this is just schlocky and messy, and then you get to like the point that Gage eventually like comes out, or probably more the point that Lewis actually digs him up, I'd say, is when it kicks into gear. It's almost just like someone turned on a light switch and everyone's like, okay, let's actually start trying now, because it turns really good. But before then, the acting, Dale Midkiff, Denise Crosby, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's obvious that they were trying. I just don't think that they really work together. They just don't feel like one big... They don't feel like a family to me. They feel very forced. They feel like they're just, completely faking it. Which obviously they are. They're actors. But you want that chemistry to really feel there. You don't really so much buy into their family dynamic so much as, like, you just want the kids to be okay. Which is kind of like, a human reaction. You see Gage get smushed by a truck and you're like, oh my god, that's terrible. You don't feel so much for Lewis and Rachel. You do with the scream, that scream that he gives, but you don't like think back to the rest of the movie and think, oh my god, this was such a happy family and now they're going to be broken apart by this event. You kind of just feel devastated that a kid fucking dies, but that's about it. And Lewis, he kind of sleepwalks through the film. Dale Midkiff, I mean, I have nothing against him. I haven't seen him in any other movies, but he doesn't really sell it to me. And, that's okay. It happens. I think that the script for this film is shaky at best. Like, it's really, really, really dodgy. I mean, I know Stephen King wrote it and he wanted it to be exactly as he envisioned it to be on the big screen. But for me, my problem is that it is so rigid and just... It actually feels like Stephen King just got like some of the key pages out of his book and just put it like on a movie script, and that's all. It doesn't feel like there's any real natural flow between the scenes. They're all just kind of edited from like, you know, what? Okay, here's one scene, here's the next scene, here's the next scene. It doesn't feel like one big continuous story. And I don't really know how else to describe that. It just... That's just how it feels. It just feels very schlocky. It feels like it's just getting kind of the bare basics done for what it needs to do to progress the story. And I just would have liked to see more. I would have liked to see these characters fleshed out a little bit more. It's just... It's very schlocky and very... just not great. And also, the character of Missy Dandridge. What the fuck? She was there with her really unconvincing main accent, and she had stomach cancer or something like that, and she's like in about one scene, maybe two scenes, and then she fucking kills herself. It's like, what? 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 It's so out of nowhere and stupid. I just don't get it at all. Like, I don't understand why her character was included. I mean, I know she was in the book, but that's actually a change from the book, because she doesn't have stomach cancer and kill herself in the book. She's just another, like, side character. And it's really... I don't know, it's out of nowhere, and then for some reason, as soon as she hangs herself, they have, like, her hanging body there, and then it cuts to, like, a still image of the Micmac burial grounds. And then it just moves on to the next scene, the funeral scene. It's like... Sorry, what are we watching? Is this a joke? Like, it actually feels like an amateur just came along and just was like, yeah, I'm sure this will work. We'll just say, okay, she's dead. Burial ground scene, like, shot to give it more suspense, and then move on to the next thing. It's like, what is going on? Really, what the fuck is happening? Please explain this to me. But overall, as much as I have my problems with this movie, this entire movie has a charm to it. I'll never forget watching it for the first time, and I really do love it. And while it's just awful in parts, I can't let my kind of rose-colored glasses just, you know, not be there. I don't know how I'm trying to phrase this, but I have a soft spot for the movie is what I'm trying to say. I know I'm looking at it through rose-colored glasses. That's how I'm trying to phrase it. But I enjoy this movie. I'm going to give Pet Sematary 3 stars. Yes, I know I've talked up this movie a lot and said how great it is, and I seriously do love it, and that 3-star rating might seem low, but really this movie, I'm trying not to rate only subjectively. I'm trying to do a bit of objective and subjective blend, and that's what I think the most appropriate score would be. So yeah. Guys, let me know what you thought of this review. Let me know what you think of the movie. If you've seen it, if you haven't, as I said, I recommend have a shot, but you know, just don't expect too much. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.